Amidst the protests and employment crisis, what exactly happened in Hong Kong? A new strict security law has been passed, which authorities claim is vital for maintaining stability. But is it beneficial as they say? The truth is, many critics are deeply worried that it will further erode civil liberties. This law, known as Article 23, introduces severe penalties, including life sentences for new offenses like internal interference and insurrection. In an astonishingly swift move, Hong Kong's pro-Beijing parliament pushed the law through its final stage in less than 2 weeks. Article 23 builds on an already controversial national security law imposed by China, which criminalizes secession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces. Hong Kong's leader John Lee said that Article 23 is necessary to guard against potential sabotage and undercurrents that try to create troubles, especially ideas of an independent Hong Kong. He called its passing a historic moment Hong Kong people have been waiting for over 26 years. China's Vice Premier Ding Shui-xiang earlier said that swift enactment of the new law would protect core national interests and allow Hong Kong to focus on economic development. Since the national security law was passed in 2020, scores of people have been arrested. Critics say this has created a climate of fear. Amnesty International's China director Sarah Brooks said the new law is another crushing blow to human rights in the city. Maya Wang, acting China director at Human Rights Watch, said it would usher Hong Kong into a new era of authoritarianism. Now, even having a book that criticizes the Chinese government can violate national security and lead to years in prison in Hong Kong. The government has been called on to repeal the law immediately. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has criticized the law, calling it a regressive step. The UK's Foreign Ministry, David Cameron, said it would further damage rights and freedoms in Hong Kong, which was a former British colony. Hong Kongers have also voiced concerns about Article 23, especially about the use of broad and vague definitions in the law. A civil servant named George told the BBC that he was most worried about its definition of state secrets. Let's imagine that a group of colleagues go out for lunch and talk about work matters. Would that be considered leaking a state secret? Would they get arrested if someone overheard and spread the information? He said he was very afraid they could be easily accused of the offense. George observed an informant culture among his colleagues since the earlier law was enforced. He estimated that about 1/5 of the employees in his department had resigned in the past 3 years. The term international organizations is very broad. People wonder if foreign investment banks and businesses count as international organizations too. Liz, who moved to Singapore, worries about being at risk of prosecution whenever her company publishes research reports with her name on them. Denying bail is silencing Hong Kong's Democrats. Walter, who works at a Western consulate in Hong Kong, is more worried about Hong Kong losing its competitive edge than his own safety. Fewer people will want to be linked with so-called external forces, making it harder for Hong Kong to keep its role as the super connector between China and the rest of the world. Walter questioned how such a complicated law could be passed so quickly without any time for public discussion. Article 23 has been planned by the authorities for a long time. According to Hong Kong's mini-constitution, the basic law, the city had to create its own security legislation. However, a previous attempt in 2003 failed because of widespread public protests. This year, the bill was brought back in early March after a month-long consultation period. Lawmakers finished reviewing the bill within days. Back in 2003, there was a 3-month consultation period. When the BBC asked about residents' concerns, the Hong Kong government said that Article 23 targets a very small number of people who threaten national security, not the general public. It was explained that law-abiding people wouldn't accidentally be caught by the law. A government spokesperson said a person would only commit an offense if they intended to endanger national security. When Hong Kong was handed over from Britain to China in 1997, China promised to keep much of what makes Hong Kong special. Beijing said Hong Kong would have 50 years to keep its capitalist system and enjoy many freedoms not found in mainland Chinese cities. But more than halfway through the transition, Beijing has made bold moves to control Hong Kong's political system and silence dissent. Many now doubt that the city will ever become a true democracy. Hong Kong used to have a lot of freedom to run its own matters. This was because of the one country, two systems policy by Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping in the 1980s. The idea was to bring together Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau with China while still keeping their special political and economic setups. After being ruled by Britain for over 150 years, Hong Kong was given back to China in 1997. In 1842, leaders of the Qing dynasty handed over Hong Kong Island to the British Crown after China lost the First Opium War. Later on, Kowloon and the new territories also came under British rule. Portugal returned to Macau in 1999 and Taiwan remained independent. The Sino-British Joint Declaration of 1984 laid out the terms for Hong Kong's return to China. According to this declaration and Hong Kong's Basic Law, which Beijing enacted following the declaration, the city was promised to keep its capitalist system and way of life and was granted a high degree of autonomy. This included powers in executive, legislative, and independent judicial matters for 50 years until 2047. In Hong Kong, Chinese Communist Party officials don't directly run things like they do in mainland China. However, Beijing has a big say in Hong Kong's politics, especially since the national security law came into effect in 2020. Beijing also has the power to explain the basic law for Hong Kong, although it didn't use this power much until recently. Any changes to how things work politically need approval not just from the Hong Kong government, but also from China's top lawmakers, the National People's Congress, or its standing committee. In certain areas like trade, communications, tourism, and culture, Hong Kong is permitted to handle external relations. But recently, Beijing has made it even harder for people in Hong Kong to vote. In 2021, they changed the rules to make it simpler for candidates who support Beijing to become the chief executive and members of the Legislative Council. Beijing decided that only people who are patriotic and respect the Chinese Communist Party can run for office. In the 2022 chief executive election, only one person was allowed to run: John Lee, who used to be a tough leader in the city's police force. Before 2021, half of the 70 members of the LegCo were elected directly, and the other half were chosen by groups representing various industries and professions. Now, only 20 members are directly elected and 70 are chosen. According to experts, Hong Kong's freedoms have been gradually eroded by Beijing since the handover. Over time, Beijing's efforts to tighten control over the city have triggered large-scale protests. In response, the Chinese government has escalated its crackdown. So do share your thoughts on this with us in the comments down below, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys later.